It's 2024, you're craving some tasty guitar riffs, but instead of that balanced flavor, you ever feel like you're just getting an overload of sugar? Nothing satisfying, just complexity candy. Whenever I crack open my computer or pick up my phone to check out a new song from one of my favorite artists, I realize that this is the norm. And it really got me thinking about how we ended up here. I've been playing guitar for most of my life, and it's been nothing short of spectacular getting to see new forms and styles of guitar emerge and take shape. If we compare the rapid evolving styles we have now to the trajectory of guitar music back in the 60s to late 90s, the difference is night and day. And I'm speaking in regards to the guitar meta as a whole, which I'm sure you've noticed is changing. And while things can always continue to change, are we at the brink of guitar innovation? Will guitar music begin to steadily decline from here, or is this just the beginning? Within a short time span of 10 years, guitar playing has become something really interesting. It's changed at such a quick pace, which to a certain degree is exciting. And while I'm optimistic, there is a piece of me that's a little reserved of what's to come of it in the future. Traditional forms of guitar playing primarily focused on techniques to separate mediocrity from what some would refer to as virtuosic. And there was this massive emphasis on things like finger tone, bend accuracy, and note expression. Today, we've kind of shied away from those metrics and began placing more weight on things like compositional variety, speed, and as strange as it is to say, note density. Of course, these musical aspects were important before, but now they mean almost everything. I've gone in depth on this topic specifically, so for the sake of this video, I'll be concise. In the late 1900s, in order to stand out as a guitarist, you kind of just needed to be good at playing guitar. I know I'm oversimplifying by a long shot, but a lot of the guitar legends that we constantly refer to were good at guitar and had a great sense of rhythm in regards to music that got people moving. And with touring and live performances being the dominant driver in expanding your audience during that time, this isn't a shocker. Those were the pieces you needed to build an at least okay career. One difference that really separates us from that time period, though, is music discovery. The way people find new music today shares very few commonalities with the way they did back then. It's certainly not from a random CD you pick up at your local indie record store. It's probably from the internet. For most of us, a large portion of the guitar music we come across is from social media, whether it be YouTube, Instagram, or a TikTok. And with short form content being the main source of how music is introduced to an audience, very rarely do you hear a song and then see a video of it. More often than not, this process happens in reverse. You see a guitarist play the song on one of the select media platforms, and then maybe a day or so later you stream it on Spotify or Apple Music. One thing you also have to keep in mind is that this is the literal converse of how music was released decades ago. And while that doesn't sound like that big of a deal on paper, I think this one factor is what has radically shifted the way guitar music is expressed today. Let's think about it. While you're scrolling online, it's not like you're watching a 3-minute post every swipe. Most of the time you're watching sections of a larger piece of content. Snippets, if you will. And due to the swift nature of how most users navigate the internet, you'd be swinging with a plastic bat if you were to upload anything not as stimulating. Dare I say slow. It's no longer enough for your piece of music to just be captivating. It also needs to be stimulating to watch as you play, which means if you want your music to stand out, it kind of has to lean towards being overcomposed or have a complex arrangement. Bonus points if it's fast. But since everyone else is also overcomposing and complicating their arrangements, it means that yours needs to be even more complex and even more. You get the point. That is if you want to play the same game. So what this whole situation ends up incentivizing is what I'm going to refer to as riff candy. When you combine this accelerating nature of guitar playing with music that is continuing to decrease in length, in essence, what you're making is candy. Short, bite-sized, stimulating pieces of ear candy. I'm aware that some artists have audiences who appreciate their leisurely paced content, but unless your tranquil melodies are really stirring the emotions, you're kind of just at a disadvantage. Point blank. This is a huge reason that guitar playing looks the way it does at this very moment. Content abundance is the invisible force that is aided in pushing flashier, more attention-grabbing styles of music, guitar playing especially. And there are still certain artists like myself who do still enjoy making musical pieces that play off of this complex nature. But you really only crave what the market presents. I grew up listening to a lot of these forms of music, which therefore has influenced my tastes at least marginally, when it comes to the music I make and enjoy. Truthfully, the most frustrating part about all of this is that being an artist or musician specifically just becomes a game. Sure, you can say it always has been, but before it was kind of like a platformer where you just make the right moves, jump at the right time, and you'll probably get to the next level. Now it's a full-blown RPG where if you don't have the right buffs, equipment, or even pick the right class, you're kind of screwed. The style you play, the tone you use, and even the guitar you're holding in the thumbnail have more influence on your content's performance than the music you're actually making. Which sounds crazy, but it is the reality. And back to the topic of speed, guitar playing across the internet has just become so fast. I've always appreciated the novelty of an artist being able to rip up and down the fretboard, but now that's just what's expected. As I mentioned earlier, the songs that do well in today's internet climate are often those that have a high note density. In other words, songs that fill as much space as possible. It's kind of a shame that negative space has become pretty much obsolete in the world of guitar, when there was literally a time where dead space and gaps were utilized frequently to create that tension that so many people love. Okay, so while it sounds like I'm drawing a lot of negatives in regards to where guitar music sits right now, I do truly believe there's a lot of valuable nuance to modern guitar that will prove to be long-standing in the years to come. For one, I believe instrumental guitar music showcases the true potential of the guitar when it's pushed to its boundaries. A guitar is no longer strictly seen as a rhythm maker or just for an occasional solo. And when paired with meaningful storytelling and creative production tactics, a guitar isn't just a part of the show, it becomes the show. Even though the bar has been raised in terms of what's deemed as impressive, a lot of new layers have been formed that could be built off of in exceptional ways in the years to come. Now that I've managed to outline some of the positives that have arisen from this new wave of guitar, I think the next few years pose a tricky situation considering the intersection of music and AI. In case you haven't heard about it, in April of 2024, the music AI generator Udia was released, operating similarly to an AI image generator. You input a prompt, and within seconds, it spits out a unique, artificially generated song tailored to your description. And though most of the tracks sound pretty cliche and basic, they're not bad. Especially considering that the software is only in its beta stage. And I think the fact that these tracks sound so generic is what will make it particularly difficult to actually tell if it was artificially produced. The most troubling part about this is that unless regulations are put in place to moderate how these softwares are utilized, it'll end up flooding the already saturated internet with soulless cookie cutter content. Not only will it take away from people listening to music made by actual artists, but it may dampen royalty payouts from streaming platforms like Spotify if AI artists start entering the game. Because keep in mind, they won't need weeks or months to write a track. They can just spit one out in minutes, and the tech is only getting better. There's honestly no telling what guitar music will sound like in the years to come, but if I had to guess, I'd argue that the pendulum will likely swing back to valuing more intentional styles of guitar playing, the ones that were found most favorable during the classic rock period. I just don't think this modern style can indefinitely continue to speed up while still adding more and more intricacies. Eventually, it'll have to slow down as audience tastes change. And for reference, just think about how valuable something as simple as a handwritten note is. Because of the effort involved and the efficiency of its alternative, like typing, it's now appreciated way more than it was when it was the sole medium of distant communication. And when you think about it, music's nothing more than a form of communicating. And the further we get from that feeling of human expression, the less relatable it becomes, which you can really just use as a proxy for enjoyment. What I'm describing is nothing more than a natural cycle. But I think as we get that backward shift, more of these modern techniques will be adopted, but they'll just be expressed in different ways. What we have to keep in mind when laying out a potential timeline for guitar music is that the electric guitar is still a relatively new instrument. It wasn't well popularized until the mid-1900s, and I think it's safe to argue that as an instrument, it still has room to mature and develop. The piano's been around for hundreds of years, yet it continues to evolve both technically and musically, which makes it hard to believe that guitar music won't do the same. It'll likely be on a much shorter time frame due to the accessible sharing of the internet, but I do think those trend ebbs and flows will still take place. We've already seen numerous bands and artists roll the ball forward, implementing unorthodox techniques and fusions. While it is possible that AI could just bring it into all original music, I really don't think that'll be the case. Digital amp simulators like NeuroDSP, which I frequently use, are constantly iterating and revising their software. And with AI integration, imagine being able to tell an amp simulator what tone you want, and it generates a collection of pre-modeled sounds for you to choose from. Or even virtual AI bandmates with dynamic processing that can tailor their sound and style to your playing. That's cool stuff. I highly doubt AI music or artists will completely wipe out the world of musicians and audio engineers, but as a tool, its benefits could be monumental. The capabilities of AI itself are literally astronomical, especially with its data computational speed, but alone, I don't think it's the end all. Pairing it as a tool to human creatives, I believe makes it far more valuable. Obviously, only time will tell, and these are just my thoughts and predictions, but if you have a valuable take, feel free to drop it down below in the comments, but that's all I got. I'll see you guys next time.